Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mediums podcast. Today is a solo episode. In fact, it is the very last episode in this first season of the Mediums podcast. So what I thought would be really fun is if we actually went through some of those episodes. I pulled out some of my favorite little pieces of advice, and I wanted to share those with you today. So I thought that'd be really fun. So the first one, there's 11 of them, by the way. The first tip that I wanted to share came from one of my early episodes. So some of these are from specific episodes, and some of them are themes that came through each and every single one of those episodes. There were some themes that came through. So I wanted to share each of those, and there's 11. So the first one is signs. I wanted to talk a little bit about signs. So it comes up in many of the episodes, especially the ones where I'm interviewing mediums in particular, and they talk about all the different signs that people receive. And I thought that I would share one of my most powerful pieces of advice around what you can do to receive more signs from your team in spirit. So the first tip that I really have is to set an intention. So when you do that, when you get really clear and grounded and you connect with your team in spirit and you say, I am setting an intention to trust the signs and synchronicities you're sending me. I am setting an intention to be able to receive those signs from you more freely and more openly. And I'm open to receiving those miracles every single day. And I do have a tool that's going to be coming out very soon that will help you to do this, to get more signs and to see some of the most common signs that we see on a regular basis. But one of the things that I thought was kind of some fun advice around signs, really two different things. The first was ask for something weird and different, like a purple car or something, a Christmas tree in a window, not at Christmas time, ask for a sign that's a little bit more unique or different when you're asking your team in spirit for some validation of something. And the other thing I wanted to tell you is that sometimes signs come in very simple and easy ways, and we may be missing the signs because we're not really looking for them in that way. So when you think, let's say your father has passed away, and every time you drive by this specific store, you think of your dad, and there's like something in the window that reminds you of him. Or, every time you see an old car, you think of your grandpa, and you immediately think of him. Trust those as signs. Trust that those are there to help guide you. And so even when they're little things, when you feel a little bit of a tingly feel all over, or you get some of that deep feeling and you have a sign, just trust that that's a sign for you. So ask for something weird or bizarre, and then also just trust those little signs that come your way, and know that if you immediately think of a loved one in spirit, when you see that sign, know that it is a sign from them. Okay, the next tip number 2 is when you get an interruption of your thought. It's kind of a play on the signs, or like a 2.0 of signs. But when you get an interruption of thought and you immediately think of a loved one in spirit, it is their way of being in your energy. So let's say you're making a chocolate cake and you immediately think, oh my gosh, grandma would sift the flour and I'm not doing that right now. But you immediately thought of your grandma and the extra step she would take that you're not taking. That is your way of your grandma being in your energy. So when that happens, just trust that it's there for you, trust that it's guiding you, trust that that loved one is around you, and then just say hi. Like, hey, grandma, I immediately thought of you. I bet you're here in my energy. Just wanted to say hi. Wanted to say, welcome, thanks for coming out and hanging out with me. And then ask them for a sign. Like, grandma, now that I can tell you're in my energy, or I can feel you, or I immediately thought of you, send me a sign. Give me something for my way of remembering you. And so ask them for something. The next thing I wanted to share with you, which is tip number 3, is that this notion or idea that the world reflects back to you what you create. So it's kind of also that phrase of like what goes around comes around, or karma's a biatch. People say that a lot too. Those are really like the negative ways of describing the same thing. But it's a notion or idea that the world will mirror to you what you show up and serve to the world. So if you want more joy in your life, be more joyful to others. If you want more abundance in your life, be more abundant with yourself and your services and how you show up and serve the world. If you want more peace in your life, cultivate a practice that you start your day in peace. So it's just this idea of like what you put out and reflect in the world will show back to you. It's also a trick in manifesting. We often think, I want all this money. I want a house. I want a yacht. I want a trip around the world. I want. But it's really that the world will mirror back to you the energy that you give it. So it's also true, like, when people walk into a room and you're like, oh my gosh, they immediately bring joyful vibes, or they immediately bring like ick and ew vibes, because we can feel the energy of other people. So if you do not like what the world is giving you, try to give the world some more of what you would want to receive. I think that's a really good tip or advice for you. So that's tip number 3. The world reflects back what you create. Okay, number 4, this is about your guides and your team in spirit. So if you want to be in relationship with your guides, your angels, your loved ones in spirit, what you have to start by doing is ask. If you're like, I don't know how to do it, monkey mind, I'm in my head, I'm not sure. The first thing that you really need to do is just ask. Ask them to show up and ask them to be in your presence more. So really just state, like, I really want to have a relationship with you, with my team in spirit, with my guides, with my angels, my guardian angels, and my loved ones in spirit. I want a relationship with you. And I am open to receiving guidance from you that's for my highest and best good. And then ask them to make themselves known to you. I am open to receiving messages from you. I'm open to receiving guidance and help and assistance. And I ask that you make your presence known to me. And then listen. Have your heart open and ready to listen to what you might be able to receive from your guides and your team in spirit. Okay, tip number 5 is don't judge your experiences or compare your experiences to other people. This is our ego trying to keep us safe. There's always this dance that happens between our ego and our higher self, or our soul, if you will. And so our ego will tell you things like, this won't work. I'm not special enough to get signs. There's no way that I'll be able to have a connection like Kara or like the other people in her podcast. I'm not capable of those things. That is your ego at work trying to limit what's possible for you. Or I can't do it the way they can, so therefore I'm not good enough, or it's not possible for me, or that's not available to me. So I will tell you, don't judge yourself. Just have your heart be open to what is there for you. We all have different ways that intuitive guidance shows up for us. And if we all had it the same way, like how boring. We wouldn't want that. And this happens for me too. Like I don't get a lot of names when I do readings for people. I just, for whatever reason, don't. And I'm always like, well, why can't I just be like John Edward, who gets all these names and they just come out of thin air, and I want to be like that. Or Tyler Henry, the, Hollywood medium, or Teresa Caputo, the, Long Island medium. I know that I am meant to be an example for other people. I know with every fabric of my body that these abilities were activated inside of me much later in life to show you what's also possible for you. And so I could judge myself, or I could criticize myself, or compare to other intuitives and wish that I could do it the way they do it. Or I could say, I'm so grateful that these gifts activated later in life for me. I'm so grateful that I can be an example for other people of what's possible for them as well. And I am going to surrender, and I'm going to be in trust, and I am going to allow myself to see little miracles around me all day, every day. And I am not going to be in a state of lack. I'm going to be in a state of abundance. And I'm telling you, it's hard to do. But when you can get out of that judgment and comparison, you're going to see more miracles, more signs, more synchronicities, more connection to your team in spirit. So I highly recommend that you let go of that ego mind and surrender to your soul, your higher self, and to be more in a place of trust and surrender. Okay, tip number 6. It's a knowing and a trust and a believing that there is something on the other side. One of my favorite things that's happened throughout this first season of the Mediums podcast is hearing so many stories, messages, and examples of what it's like on the other side. From, Jacob Cooper talking about his near-death experience, to Karen Reese talking about channeling and messages from the other side, to Kirsten Hathcock talking about solving cold cases and kids that have been, wrongfully murdered and killed, and how they'll come to her and she can help solve those cases of what happened to her and give their family closure. I mean, it is just amazing the amount of stories that we have collected in this first season. And if there is ever a question in your mind about, is there something on the other side? Is there something bigger than us? I want you to be in trust, that there is so much more than what our eyes can see. And we don't have to have it all figured out. I like to think of it as like the world is a giant orchestra, and it's our job to play our own instrument to the best of our ability, to follow the signs and breadcrumbs, to kind of listen to the music of our soul, if you will, and to just trust that we are part of the magic and we're all interconnected. And that as we are parents to our children, and our children are going to be parents to their children, and these next generations come up, can we be more of a light for them? Can we shine light in a way that allows them to see hope for something brighter, and that there is something beyond what we can see? And how magical and cool is that? So be in trust that there is something bigger than what we can see. And figure out what instrument you are and go play it to the best of your ability. Okay, tip number 7 is something around how we can shift and change our perspectives. And so it's really around this idea that when we learn how to control our mind and we learn how to control our thoughts, there's so much more that is open to us. So our whole world will change when we learn how to not be controlled by our monkey mind and our ego and our thoughts and patterns that just go over and over and over again. And when we can surrender to that. And I think this came up in almost every single episode of the Mediums podcast, but almost every single person recommended meditating or being in stillness or quiet, any of those combination of things, which I think are all kind of very similar, truly. So one of the best things that you can do to shift your perspective, to release that control of your mind and your mind's thoughts, is to be in meditation. And I love, even Kelly mentioned this in her episode around sitting in silence, and at first how hard it was for her to do that. And I remember her saying, like, even 7 minutes, like I couldn't even sit for 7 minutes without like my ADHD brain like kicking in and, thinking about a million things and wishing that I could just, I didn't want to be alone with my own thoughts. And so I thought that was a really good example of how to quiet your mind and be in meditation. People ask me a lot, well, I'm not good at meditating, so I don't want to do it. Or I don't know how to meditate, so I'm not going to do it. And I would say just start with being with yourself. So just start by sitting outside for 5 minutes without your phone and without conversation with anyone else. And just sit on your patio chair in stillness and quiet and see if you can just be alone with yourself. That's a really good first step. And if you're constantly like criticizing yourself and being, in your mind's eye of a million different things, that's a really good exercise in getting into stillness. If you're in a state where you're like, oh, I can't quiet my monkey mind, I just can't settle it down, then try a guided meditation. A guided meditation will help you get out of your head a little bit. If you're like, you know what, I can't sit in stillness, but I can go walk in my garden, or I can just go spend a little bit of time in nature, that might help you as well. So just find a spiritual practice that works for you, that resonates with you, and that kind of warms your heart in a way and allows you to grow and expand your soul. Some even recommend doing like a group class. So that might be something to think about too. I think Richard Damien talked about that. You know, a monk within us, that he sometimes being in a class, a meditation class, can help you learn how to activate or enhance these skills of stillness and quiet and listening. So try that. See if it works for you. And find a spiritual practice that feels aligned for you. Okay, the next one, this is actually something I do every single day, and I recommend you doing it too. But it's clear out the junk. Clear out the junk, the energetic junk that is in your vibration every single day. I have a free meditation that does this, that takes us through each one of your chakras and how to clear it out and how to release what no longer serves you, put yourself in a bubble of light, call back your energy. But everything is energy. And when we're around, especially like out in the work world, and we're working with people that really are not at the same vibrational state as us, we pick up some of their low vibrational frequency and energy, and we need to release it and get it off of our system. So clear it out every single day, and it allows you to flourish and grow. So you think this isn't a practice I need to do, but it truly is. And if you don't know how to do that, go grab my free tool. You can find it on my resources tab of my website, on the resources of my Instagram. You could probably even text tool to probably any Instagram post I have, and it'll prompt you to like download this meditation that'll help you to do that. And the reason that I wanted to bring this up or have you think about this is because it's like weeding a garden. A garden is so beautiful, but if you let the weeds overgrow the garden, the flowers can't flourish. The vegetables can't flourish. And Ariella Halevi talks about this too. This idea of pick the weeds off out of your garden every day, or clear the junk that's in your mind and in your energetic field and your auric field every single day. And that way your vegetables or roses can thrive and grow and be beautiful. And it's true for you too. For you to grow into your most expansive self, we need to get the weeds out of your own garden so that you can thrive. So think about how you can do that every single day. Clear that energy and get rid of it and get it out of there. Okay, the next little tip number 9, I like to say it's be a scientist or be curious. Be curious. James Wedmore talks about this a lot as well. He owns the company Business by Design, and I got the privilege of interviewing him. But it's this idea that if you believe in yourself and you trust yourself and you learn how to trust and believe in your own voice, you're going to find that you're happier, more joyful, and more full of love. And it's a practice of coming back to well-being and practicing being well-being. And this isn't that easy to do, is to really trust that voice within, especially when things don't go our way. And I often say, if something isn't going your way, it's a lesson. It is a lesson to get curious about. So think about your entire life like a giant experiment. And when something doesn't go your way, you lose a job, you get in a car accident, you get in a fight with somebody you care deeply about, you fall out of relationship with your sister or your brother, or, things that just really, truly don't go your way. I want you to think about it like a giant science experiment. So observe it. What's going on? What's taking place? What am I needing to pay attention to? How am I feeling in this exact window of time? And you'll start getting little nudges and little breadcrumbs that will lead you to the answers. And part of it is asking the right questions. So getting into asking questions that pique curiosity and that come from a place of intuition. So what am I missing? What am I supposed to be learning here? Start really asking yourself those types of questions that can help you to try to figure that out. So be a scientist in any of the challenges or adversities or things going on in your life, and learn how to be in a more of a state of being well. Okay, this next tip kind of leads into that, and it's around asking the right questions. So this idea or notion of asking outcome-oriented questions. So these are the types of questions that require you to be still and to truly listen. For example, a really good question is, how can I be of service to others? Instead of, how do I get this job promotion? How do I get this house? How do I get this life that I want? How do I get this paycheck that I want? How do I get the things that I want? Those are the wrong questions. And a lot of those manifesting tools tell you that. Just put a giant picture of a mansion on your wall, and then you'll think of it every day. And then before you know it, you'll have the mansion. Now, I'm not saying you can't have a mansion. I'm just saying you're asking the wrong questions to get to the things that you want. So how can I be more of service? How can I find more joy in the things that I do? My friend Laura Haver talks about this, like, how do I find more play in my everyday mundane life? So how do I find more joy or play in the littlest of things that I do to shift my energy and shift the way that I show up into the world? What is one thing I can do today to help somebody else? What is one thing that I can do to be of service to another person today? And when we focus on the cause, on that versus the effect, that's when we start getting the things that we want. So instead of thinking, I want this, I desire this, I hope I can have this, start thinking, as if I can be of service and joy and fulfillment, then good things will come my way. Versus I want these good things, and then when I get them, I will be happy and joyful and all of those things. So instead, think about more of the cause than the effect. What is causing my life to be the way I want it to be? Well, it's your mindset. It's your perspective. It's noticing and paying attention to the little things and finding joy in the smallest of things and getting curious with the things that don't go our way. Okay, the last tip. Tip number 11 is, I think, the most beautiful one, which is, how do I be in a higher source of love? How do I be more centered and more in the state and energy of love? So if you follow me on Instagram, you probably see me post this all the time, but I really love the Whitney Houston song, Higher Love. And it's just like, how do I get higher love? Like, how do I connect to source, God, universe, energy? For me, I truly believe this, and Holly Hall talks about this as well as other people, but the highest source of in the world, like, or in the universe, this God source, this universal source is love. It's unconditional love. It's the highest vibration that we can be at, is in this connection of love. So I want to challenge you as we take a little break for the summer, for the Mediums podcast, if you're listening to this in real time. I want to challenge you to see a person or situation that you're not currently very happy with. So a person or just the way a situation went down. And I want to challenge you to see that situation through the lens of love. This is quite hard to do, but I'm going to ask you instead to say, how would Jesus or Mother Teresa or Buddha or Gandhi see this person or see this situation? And I encourage you to see it from that perspective, or at least try to. Close your eyes and visualize and see this situation through the lens of love. And I truly believe that when we can learn how to love ourselves and accept ourselves and empower ourselves to be living a life of alignment and intuition, is when the doors open for the most joyful parts of our life. So I encourage you to love yourself, fill that bucket full, let it overflow into other people, And the best way to do that is to accept yourself for who you are. Forgive yourself. Let go of any hard feelings you have about choices you made in your life, and to see yourself through the lens of love and grace and forgiveness, and to shine your light brightly in the world. So be in that vibration of higher love and let the magic and miracles happen. Okay, I am taking a break, y'all. We're taking a little bit of a summer reset break, and I'm going to be coming back with season 2. However, I have kind of a fun surprise. I am going to be renaming the podcast. So I will still be interviewing mediums, but I'm going to be interviewing other types of intuitives, kind of like I have towards the end of this season of this podcast. And I'm just going to be opening the door to all sorts of different types of people and talking about energy and energetic states and how we can shift our own energy. And I'm super, super, super excited. So stay tuned. Keep following and subscribing to this podcast, because when I come out at the beginning of August with my next episode, it is going to have a brand new name, and I am pumped. So the tagline is going to stay the same, a backstage pass into the lives of intuitives, because I truly believe we all have intuition and we all have the ability to activate or enhance or strengthen our inner knowing or our intuition. So I'm changing the name. It's no longer going to be the Mediums Podcast, and I can't wait. I almost want to drop it here like a little breadcrumb, or like give you a like word to tag, and if you tag it, I'll tell you the new name. But it's going to be coming out very, very soon, so pay attention. And I just wanted to say thank you all so much for listening, for subscribing, for sharing this podcast. It has been such a delight for me to interview people, for me to connect with people and hear their stories and share their stories with you. So until the next episode, I hope that you all continue to shine your light bright in the world and tap into that inner knowing as you take a little summer reset break with me. Wish you well, everybody.